The Rolex Submariner is one of the most iconic watches in watchmaking history. It is a watch that's desired by so many, and I understand why. It's well built, it's got a timeless design, and is instantly recognisable as it's made by one of the most, if not the single biggest brand in watchmaking history. So I understand why a lot of people want it, but right now there is not enough to go around. And even if you are lucky enough to wait 10 years and then spend £7,150, it's going to be a long way away. So how do you scratch that itch in the meantime? Well, that's where I come in. Today I'm going to be showing you 4 alternate watches to the Rolex Submariner. Now hopefully these are going to help you find a good price point because I've got 4 different price points to go through. Let's jump in. Now before I go into my number 1 selection, which is under £100, I just want to say that I've owned and reviewed 3 of the 4 watches that I'm going to be showing on today's list. So I have had hands-on experience with all the watches bar 1 on this list today. Now starting off we have the Casio Duro, a really nice watch for the price. This is somewhere in the region of £60 to £70, maybe you can find it even cheaper on eBay for maybe £50. It's a by Casio, obviously by the name, and is a really nice watch. It looks very similar to the Rolex Submariner without being a direct homage. Now, some of the pros of this watch: the price is very low, so there's a very low barrier to entry. There is a beautiful design, and it's an original design. Now, the other thing is it's very accurate and very reliable. That's because it's a quartz movement. Now, the drawbacks to this watch, it's quite large. 44mm will not fit everyone's wrist. It's quite a large watch. The other thing is it's got a mineral crystal, not sapphire, so it will scratch quite easily. Mine particularly has done quite a lot of scratching. The other thing is going to be the bezel is aluminium, so that will also scratch quite easily. But it's definitely a really good watch to add to the collection for such a low barrier to entry. Which then brings me on to my second selection. This is going to be the most close watch to the Rolex Submariner for looks wise, and that is the Cronos. The Cronos here, you can see it on my wrist, is a beautiful watch resembling really similar dimensions and very similar aesthetics to the Rolex Submariner. I actually think in some ways it may even surpass it. I mean, it's got an applied logo that looks great. It's got a really low barrier to entry, which you just don't get on a Rolex anymore. So some of the pros of this watch. Well, like I said, it looks very similar to the Rolex Submariner, so if your heart's set on this, I don't really know if you'd set too much aside as far as looks. You're not really losing that much on this. And to be honest, with such a low barrier to entry, this is coming in at under £200, and you'll be able to find this on AliExpress fairly frequently on deals for maybe £140. So this is a really nice watch to say the least. It has a sapphire crystal with slight AR coating. It has a beautiful ceramic bezel, really nice click on it, really good rotational aspects to that. And it's just like I said, very good finishing, and it looks very similar to the Rolex Submariner. The only drawbacks to this watch are it's coming from AliExpress, so it's going to take a while to get to you, and it's not always going to be on sale. You might have to spend a little bit more if you want it quickly from Amazon. And the other thing is that it's coming from a micro brand, so you're not going to have a large amount of reliability as far as warranties, but I don't think that really matters too much. Now, the number 3 selection is a watch that I very recently reviewed. Now, that does remind me to say, if you want to see any of these watches in greater detail, I'll have all my reviews linked in the description below. So after this video you can have a look and find out more information about each watch. Now this watch, the Mido Ocean Star, is coming in at under £1,000. I believe you can buy this watch brand new for £760, which is pretty damn good for the specifications it holds. Now going into those, we have a sapphire crystal with anti-reflective undercoating. We have a semi-in-house movement. It's an ETA movement that's modified by Mido with an 80-hour power reserve, and it's got a very thin dimensions that come in at 11.8mm. That's very thin indeed for such a good power reserve. Now the drawbacks to this watch is one, the price. That's quite a lot of money, but it is an original design, which is something that is good to see. It's got original hands, and it is original, but it also looks similar to the Submariner. Now the drawbacks, like I said, is that it is coming quite high of price. It's got an aluminium bezel that will scratch, and just in general, not many people are going to be able to pull off maybe a 42.5mm case diameter. That is quite large, and I appreciate some people just won't want to go that big. So my 4th and final pick for today's video is going to be the closest you can get to owning a Rolex Submariner without owning a Rolex Submariner, and that is the Tudor Black Bay 58. Coming in at under £3,000, this watch is a really good value for money. From what I've seen, I've never personally reviewed this watch. That is why I can't exactly recommend it. But from what I've seen from other channels and what I've seen in person, it is a really well made watch. And it's so close to Rolex because Rolex owns it. Rolex owns Tudor. It's a sort of little brother to Rolex. That way you have direct inspiration from the heritage line of the Rolex Submariner in this Black Bay 58. You really see the inspiration with the red triangle above the 12. It just looks amazing. I have to say this watch is really beautiful to look at, and with the specifications it actually doesn't seem that bad for the money. So going into those, we have sapphire crystal, obviously you'd expect that. You have a 70-hour in-house power reserve with a COSC certified movement, really nice to see. And well, there are a few cons. Aluminium bezel, are you serious? Aluminium on this sort of value for money? I mean, this Cronos has a ceramic bezel. Aluminium, it might be a choice. It might be an aesthetic choice, but still, I would way prefer ceramic any day. I don't want scratched bezels, and I'm sure a lot of you don't want either scratched bezels. So I'd rather have ceramic. And the other thing is a riveted bracelet. Like, come on. Can't we have screw links? Riveted bracelets, I know they're a heritage style, but honestly, screw links are so much easier to work with, and riveted bracelets are just a pain to work with. But that's going to be my fourth and final pick. The closest you can get really to the Rolex Submariner without having a Rolex Submariner. And that's all for today's video. I really hope you've enjoyed this different type of video. I've really enjoyed making it, and I actually really want to do more videos like this in the future with different brands, not just Rolex. Let me know if you want to see any videos like this coming up soon. Put your comments in the comment section below. Maybe recommend a watch that you want to see alternates for. Maybe the Ulysse Nardin Blue Shark, maybe? Or something along those lines. Something a bit different. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope to see you soon. But for now, goodbye.